The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a vast cathedral made of crystal and light. Hundreds of alien beings sat in floating chairs that moved slowly around the central speaking platform. Some looked like giant insects with shining wings. Others appeared as clouds of gas that sparkled with tiny lights. The Crexton delegates wore thick armor that made them look like walking tanks. Each species was different, but they all shared one thing. They believed they were better than the humans. Ambassador Zethkar stepped onto the speaking platform. His purple skin gleamed under the artificial lights, and his forearms moved in patterns that meant he was about to make an important announcement. The chamber fell silent. Even the translator machine stopped their quiet humming. "Fellow council members," Zethkar began, his voice echoing through the hall, "we gather today to discuss a problem on the edge of our galaxy. A young species that calls themselves humans." A holographic image appeared above the platform. It showed a small blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. Earth looked tiny and unimportant compared to the massive space stations and planet-sized cities that the council species called home. "For 50 of their years, we have watched these humans," Zethkar continued. "We have studied their behavior, their technology, and their society. What we have found is troubling." Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Veil Nathi delegates, who looked like walking sheets of transparent fabric, shimmered with concern. The collective representatives, a hive mind that spoke with one voice through dozens of bodies, clicked their mandibles in disapproval. "The humans fight constantly among themselves," Zethkar explained. "They have hundreds of different governments that cannot agree on anything. They poison their own planet and waste their resources on conflicts. Most concerning of all, they refuse to follow the natural order of civilization. The natural order was simple, according to the Council. When a species developed space travel, the Council would contact them. The Council would then decide if the species was ready to join galactic society. If they were not ready, they would be placed under Council protection until they learned proper behavior. This system had worked for 10,000 years. The humans have been given the standard offer," Zethkar said. "Join the Council as a protected species. Give up their weapons. Accept our guidance. Let us help them become civilized." "And their response?" asked War Leader Thulgrim of the Crexton. His voice sounded like metal grinding against stone through the translator. Zethkar's expression darkened. "They said no." The chamber erupted in shocked sounds. Clicking, humming, screeching, and other alien noises filled the air. In 10,000 years of galactic history, no species had ever refused the Council's offer. It was unthinkable. "Not only did they refuse," Zethkar continued when the noise died down, "but they did so in the most insulting way possible. Their leader, something called a United Nations Secretary General, sent this message." Another hologram appeared. A human woman with gray hair and tired eyes looked out at the Council. When she spoke, her words were translated into hundreds of languages. "To the Galactic Council," the human woman said, "thank you for your offer, but humanity must respectfully decline. We will govern ourselves, defend ourselves, and make our own way among the stars. We suggest you focus on your own affairs and leave us to ours. We have no desire for conflict, but we will not surrender our freedom to strangers." The message ended, but the impact continued to ripple through the chamber. Several delegates were making urgent communications with their home worlds. Others sat in stunned silence. "Since then," Zethkar said, "all attempts to contact the humans have been ignored. They have cut off all communication with Council representatives. Our diplomatic ships are turned away at the edge of their solar system by automated messages telling us we are not welcome." Dr. Sithara, the Council's chief xenobiologist, raised one of her tentacles to speak. Her species, the Quelnathi, were known for their deep understanding of alien psychology. "Has there been any precedent for this behavior? Any historical examples we can study?" "None," Zethkar replied firmly. "In our entire recorded history, every species has eventually seen the wisdom of joining the Council. The benefits are obvious: protection from space pirates, access to advanced technology, trade with dozens of civilizations. Only a foolish species would refuse such advantages." War Leader Thulgrim stood up from his chair. His massive armored form cast a shadow over nearby delegates. "Perhaps they need a demonstration of Council power, a show of force to help them understand their situation." "The humans are primitive," added Delegate Zorthan of the Silicon Collective. "Their fastest ships take months to travel between planets in their own system. Their weapons are chemical explosives and simple energy beams. They barely qualify as a spacefaring civilization." But Dr. Sithara looked troubled. She had been studying human history, and what she found worried her. Honored delegates, I must share a concern. While human technology appears primitive, their behavioral patterns are unusual. They have a history of rapid advancement when threatened. They also show remarkable unity when faced with external enemies despite their internal conflicts. Irrelevant. Zethkar dismissed with a wave of his hand. No amount of determination can overcome the technological gap between humans and the Council. If they will not accept our generous offer peacefully, then we must enforce it for their own good. The vote was called. One by one, each species cast their decision. The result was overwhelming. The Council would send a fleet to human space. The humans would be given one final chance to surrender. If they refused again, their military would be destroyed and their world placed under direct Council control. As the session ended and delegates began to leave, Dr. Sithara remained in her seat, studying the data about human history on her personal device. What she saw made her more worried with each passing moment. Humans had a pattern. When faced with superior enemies, they did not surrender. Instead, they found ways to turn their weaknesses into strengths. They had defeated invasion forces with superior technology by using tactics their enemies did not expect. They had survived ice ages, plagues, and natural disasters that should have destroyed them. Most concerning of all, they had a talent for rapid innovation when their survival was at stake. But perhaps most troubling was their relationship with authority. Throughout their history, humans had repeatedly rejected the rule of kings, emperors, and dictators. They seemed to have an instinctive hatred of being controlled by others. The Council's offer, which seemed generous to other species, might feel like slavery to humans. Dr. Sithara tried to bring these concerns to other Council members, but they were not interested in listening. The decision had been made. A fleet would be assembled, the largest punitive force in Council history. 300 ships carrying the most advanced weapons in the galaxy would travel to human space and end this embarrassing situation, once and for all. What none of them knew was that in the 18 months since humanity's refusal, the entire solar system had been transformed into something that would have been impossible to imagine. While the Council debated and planned, humans had been working. And when humans worked with their survival at stake, they could accomplish things that seemed impossible. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change the galaxy forever. Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her hand against the cold metal wall of Luna Station and felt the vibration of massive machines working deep beneath the moon's surface. The sound never stopped now. Day and night, the factories carved new tunnels, built new equipment, and created things that had never existed before. She walked to the observation deck and looked out at the construction yards that covered the moon's dark side. 18 months ago, this had been empty space and bare rock. Now it looked like a metal city stretching to the horizon. Massive ships hung in the construction bays like sleeping giants. Workers in spacesuits moved between them like tiny insects, adding armor, installing weapons, testing systems that defied everything humanity thought they knew about physics. "How many are ready?" Admiral Chen asked as he joined her at the window. His hair had turned gray in the past year, and new lines marked his face. The stress of preparing for war with an entire galaxy had aged him quickly. 73 ships of the line, Elena replied, reading from her tablet. 215 destroyers, 8 dreadnoughts, and the special projects. The special projects were humanity's biggest secret. When the Council had given their ultimatum, human scientists had realized that conventional technology would never be enough. They could not match alien weapons with better versions of human weapons. They needed something completely different. The breakthrough had come from studying wreckage of a Council survey ship that had crashed on Earth 20 years earlier. The alien technology used principles that human physics said were impossible, but the wreckage proved that impossible things could work anyway. Human engineers had spent months taking apart every piece of alien metal, studying how it bent space and time in ways that should have torn apart reality. "The artificial gravity generators are working beyond our wildest hopes," Elena continued. "We can make a ship weigh nothing or make it weigh as much as a planet. We can create gravity fields that act like invisible walls or weapons that crush enemies from the inside out." Admiral Chen nodded, but his expression remained grim. "Will it be enough? The Council is sending 300 ships. Each one is larger than our biggest vessel. They have weapons that can crack open planets." Size does not matter when you can change the rules, Elena said. Our ships do not follow normal physics anymore. We can make space fold in on itself. We can make time move faster or slower in small areas. We can hit enemies from directions that do not exist. Through the window, they watched the UES Defiance complete its final test run. The massive ship was 3 kilometers long and covered in armor, made from materials that had never existed before. Its hull was black metal that seemed to absorb light and bend it around the ship's edges. When it moved, space itself seemed to ripple around it like water. The Defiance was not just large. It was a weapon that could rewrite reality in a small area around itself. Its engines did not push against space. They convinced space to move the ship forward. Its weapons did not fire energy beams. They created zones where the laws of physics worked differently. The automated defense systems are online throughout the solar system, Admiral Chen reported. Every asteroid has been turned into a weapons platform. Every moon has underground bases. If the Council fleet somehow gets past our main forces, they will find that every rock in our system can fight back. Elena pulled up a display showing the incredible transformation of human space. Mars had been turned into a massive shipyard. The asteroid belt was now a maze of hidden weapons and sensor arrays. Jupiter's moons had become fuel refineries and equipment factories. Even Venus, with its crushing atmosphere and acid rain, had been covered with mining operations that stripped away the planet's surface to feed the war machine. How did we do this so fast? Elena wondered aloud. 18 months ago, we barely had space stations. Now we have rebuilt our entire solar system. Desperation, Admiral Chen answered simply. When humans face extinction, we can do impossible things. We worked 24 hours a day. We put aside every other concern. Every human on every world contributed something. The transformation had not just been technological. Humanity itself had changed. All the old divisions between countries and cultures had been set aside. Everyone understood that they were facing an enemy that wanted to destroy their way of life. Rich and poor, young and old, every human had found a way to help build the fleet that would defend their species. Scientists who had spent their careers studying stars were now designing weapons. Engineers who had built bridges were creating armor plating. Even children had helped by working in the simpler factories and assembly lines. The entire human species had become a single organism focused on one goal: survival. The Council made one critical mistake, Elena said as she watched another completed destroyer leave the construction bay. They gave us time to prepare. They thought we would spend that time panicking or fighting among ourselves. Instead, we spent it working. But why have we not heard from them again? Admiral Chen asked. Our long-range sensors show no approaching fleets. No follow-up diplomatic messages, nothing. They are coming, Elena said with certainty. The Council has never been refused before. They cannot allow it to stand, or other species might start getting ideas about independence. They will send a fleet large enough to crush us completely. They want to make an example of us. Admiral Chen looked out at the fleet that humanity had built and felt a mixture of pride and terror. The ships were beautiful in their own way, but they represented something that should have been impossible. In 18 months, humans had jumped from barely being able to reach other planets to building weapons that could fight the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Do you think we can win? He asked quietly. Elena was silent for a long moment. She thought about all the impossible things they had already accomplished. She thought about the desperation that had driven human innovation to heights that even she had not believed possible. She thought about the fact that humans had never accepted defeat when their survival was at stake. The Council thinks this will be easy, she finally said. They think they are fighting the same primitive species they observed 20 years ago. They have no idea what we have become. When they arrive expecting to find frightened humans hiding behind simple weapons, they will instead find something that will change their understanding of what is possible. Far below them, in the deep tunnels of Luna Station, the last components of humanity's most secret weapon were being assembled. It was something so revolutionary that even Elena did not fully understand how it worked. The scientists who had designed it called it a reality anchor, a device that could make the impossible become possible by convincing the universe to change its own rules. The Council was coming, with the largest fleet in galactic history. They expected to find humans cowering in fear, ready to surrender when faced with overwhelming force. Instead, they would find that humanity had used the time to become something entirely new. something that could stand against the galaxy itself and refuse to bow down. The silent storm was almost ready to become a hurricane that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. High Admiral Zenthara stood on the bridge of the Sovereign Authority and felt the power of 300 warships moving through space around her flagship. Each vessel was a masterpiece of galactic engineering, built with technology perfected over thousands of years. Their hulls gleamed with armor that could withstand the heat of a star. Their weapons could crack open moons. Their shields could deflect anything the galaxy could throw at them. The fleet stretched out for hundreds of kilometers in perfect formation. Massive dreadnoughts led the way, their weapon ports glowing with barely contained energy. Behind them came the cruisers and destroyers ready to sweep aside any resistance. At the rear, support ships carried enough firepower to conquer entire star systems. "Status report," Zenthara commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. "All ships report ready for combat," her tactical officer replied. "Long-range sensors show no human fleet movement. They appear to be keeping all their ships close to their homeworld." Zenthara nodded with satisfaction. This was exactly what she had expected. The humans were doing what every inferior species did when faced with council might. They were pulling back to make their last stand at their home planet. It was a predictable and ultimately useless strategy. "Any defensive structures detected?" she asked. "Minimal, Admiral. Some orbital stations around their planets and a few asteroid-based sensor arrays. Nothing that poses a threat to our forces." The bridge crew worked with calm efficiency. These were veterans who had participated in dozens of pacification campaigns. They had faced species with powerful weapons, advanced shields, and clever tactics. The humans appeared to have none of these advantages. War Leader Thulgrim's voice came through the communication system from his heavy cruiser. "Hi, Admiral. My weapons teams are eager to begin the attack. How long do you estimate this campaign will take?" 6 hours, Zenthara replied confidently. "Perhaps less. The humans have no fleet to speak of, and their technology is centuries behind ours. We will destroy their orbital defenses, neutralize their ground-based weapons, and accept their surrender by the end of the day." Dr. Zenthara, the fleet's xenobiologist, stood at a secondary station analyzing the data they had collected about human space. Her tentacles moved nervously as she studied the readings. Something was wrong, but she could not identify exactly what. "Admiral," she said hesitantly, "I am detecting some unusual energy signatures throughout the human system. The readings are inconsistent with their known technology level." "Inconsistent how?" Zenthara asked, though she did not sound particularly concerned. "The power outputs are much higher than expected, and there are gravitational anomalies near several of their installations. It is almost as if they are using artificial gravity on a massive scale." Zenthara dismissed the concern with a wave of her hand. Primitive species often produce unusual readings when they push their technology beyond safe limits. They are probably overloading their power systems in desperation. It will only make their defeat more complete when their equipment fails. The fleet continued its advance toward the inner human system. As they traveled, more strange readings appeared on their sensors. Massive construction projects that had not been there during previous reconnaissance missions. Industrial activity on a scale that seemed impossible for such a young civilization. Energy signatures that did not match any known technology in Council databases. "Perhaps we should proceed with more caution," Dr. Zenthara suggested. "In my studies of human history, I have found that they have a tendency to surprise their enemies with unexpected innovations." "Innovations?" War Leader Thulgrim laughed, his voice booming through the communication system. "What innovations could they possibly have developed? Better chemical rockets? Slightly improved fusion reactors? We have weapons that manipulate matter at the atomic level. We have shields that can stop anything short of a supernova. What could humans possibly create that would concern us?" The answer to that question was hiding throughout the solar system, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Human engineers had not tried to build better versions of conventional weapons. Instead, they had built things that conventional physics said could not exist. "Admiral," the sensor operator called out, "I am detecting movement near the edge of the system. Multiple contacts appearing on long-range sensors." "The human fleet?" Zenthara asked, finally showing some interest. "Unknown. The contacts are strange. They appear and disappear from sensors randomly. When they are visible, they show impossible movement patterns. Ships cannot accelerate that quickly without tearing themselves apart." Xanthara studied the sensor display with growing confusion. The human ships were moving in ways that violated everything she knew about space travel. They seemed to ignore inertia, changing direction instantly without slowing down. Some appeared to be moving faster than light without entering hyperspace. Others seemed to vanish from one location and appear in another with no travel time at all. Sensor malfunction, she decided. These readings are impossible. Have the technical teams run full diagnostics on all detection equipment. But the technical teams found nothing wrong with their sensors. The readings were accurate. The human ships were actually moving in ways that should have been impossible. They were using technology that the Council's greatest scientists had declared theoretical at best. As the Council fleet moved deeper into human space, they began to encounter other impossible things. Asteroid mining stations that were far too large for the equipment that should have built them. Energy readings that suggested fusion reactors operating at efficiency levels that violated thermodynamics. Gravity fields that existed without visible sources. How long since we last surveyed this system? Xanthara asked, beginning to feel the first stirrings of unease. 18 months, her intelligence officer replied. Standard procedure after issuing an ultimatum. 18 months. The humans had accomplished more in 18 months than most species managed in 18 years. They had transformed their entire solar system into something unrecognizable. But more than that, they had developed technology that challenged the fundamental assumptions about what was possible. Admiral, Dr. Xanthara said urgently, I recommend we halt our advance and request additional support. The humans have clearly made unprecedented technological advances. We may be flying into a trap. Nonsense, Xanthara replied, though her voice lacked its earlier confidence. No species can advance that quickly. Whatever we are seeing, there must be a logical explanation. Perhaps they have received aid from another galactic power. But even as she said it, she knew it was not true. No galactic power would risk Council anger by arming a primitive species. And besides, the technology they were detecting was not like anything in Council databases. It was something entirely new. The fleet continued its advance, but now the crew was nervous. Veterans who had fought in hundreds of battles were staring at sensor readings that made no sense. Equipment that had never failed them was showing them things that could not exist. Contact, the sensor operator suddenly shouted. Multiple ships decloaking directly ahead of us. The main display lit up with images of the human fleet. What appeared before them was nothing like what they had expected to find. These were not the small primitive vessels that Council intelligence had described. These were massive ships covered in black armor that seemed to bend light around their edges. They moved through space like living things, flowing around gravitational fields that they created and dismissed at will. How many? Xanthara demanded. 73 capital ships, over 200 smaller vessels. And Admiral, they are not following any known laws of physics. As if to prove the point, one of the human ships suddenly accelerated to impossible speeds, stopped instantly, and then moved sideways without turning. Another seemed to fold space around itself, becoming larger and smaller at the same time. A third appeared to be in two places at once, as if it existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Admiral Chen's voice echoed across all communication channels. Calm and professional despite the circumstances. Council fleet, you have entered human space without permission and with obvious hostile intent. You have one opportunity to withdraw immediately. Xanthara stared at the impossible ships arrayed before her and felt something she had not experienced in centuries of warfare. For the first time in her long military career, High Admiral Xanthara felt afraid. The first human ship to fully materialize looked like something from a nightmare. The UES Defiant stretched across 3 kilometers of space, its black hull seeming to absorb the light from nearby stars. But what made it truly terrifying was not its size. It was the way space itself bent around the ship like a lens, distorting everything behind it. High Admiral Xanthara stared at her sensor displays in disbelief. The readings showed that the human ship was somehow manipulating gravity on a massive scale. It was creating fields of artificial gravity that reached out for thousands of kilometers, turning empty space into a web of invisible forces that could crush anything caught within them. Impossible, she whispered. No species has ever developed gravitational manipulation technology. The energy requirements alone would require the output of a star. But the Defiance was not alone. As Xanthara watched in growing horror, more human ships appeared from what her sensors told her was folded space. They did not emerge from hyperspace like normal vessels. Instead, they seemed to step out of dimensions that should not have existed, arriving instantly at their destinations without any travel time. 73 capital ships confirmed, her tactical officer reported, his voice shaking, all of them showing impossible energy signatures. Admiral, these readings suggest they are using technology that violates fundamental laws of physics. The human fleet did not arrange itself in any formation that Council military doctrine recognized. Instead of neat lines and organized groups, the ships moved like a pack of hunters. They flowed around each other in complex patterns, creating and dismissing gravity fields that allowed them to change direction instantly, without any concern for inertia or momentum. War leader Thulgrim's voice crackled over the communication system, filled with anger and confusion. What are we looking at? These ships are moving in ways that should tear them apart. How are they accelerating without engines? How are they turning without maneuvering thrusters? The answer was something that the Council's greatest scientists had said was impossible. The humans had learned to manipulate space and time itself. Their ships did not push against space to move. They convinced space to carry them forward. They did not turn by changing direction. They changed the direction that forward meant. Dr. Sithara studied the sensor data with growing amazement and terror. Admiral, I believe the humans have developed technology based on manipulating fundamental forces. They are not just using gravity as a weapon. They are treating it like a tool that can be shaped and controlled. How? Zenthara demanded. Their development level was centuries behind ours 18 months ago. Species do not advance that quickly. It is impossible. Apparently not, Dr. Sithara replied quietly. The evidence is right in front of us. Admiral Chen's voice echoed across space again, patient but firm. Council Fleet, you have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal procedures. After that, we will consider your presence an act of war. Zenthara felt rage building inside her. She had commanded the most powerful fleet in galactic history. Her ships had conquered entire civilizations. She would not be intimidated by a species that had barely learned to leave their own planet. All ships battle formation, she commanded. Prepare to engage the human fleet. Show them the power of the Galactic Council. The Council fleet moved into attack position with practiced efficiency. 300 ships arranged themselves in the formations that had dominated galactic warfare for thousands of years. Their weapons powered up, creating a light show of energy that could be seen across the solar system. Their shields activated, surrounding each ship with barriers that could stop anything the galaxy could produce. But as they prepared to attack, something impossible happened. The human ships simply moved, not quickly, not with any visible effort, but with a casual ease that made it clear they were not limited by the same rules that governed normal spacecraft. One human destroyer suddenly appeared directly behind a Council cruiser, having somehow moved through solid matter without damaging either ship. Another seemed to exist in multiple locations at once, as if it had learned to be in several places simultaneously. A third grew larger and smaller as they watched, changing its size like it was adjusting a control setting. "Open fire!" Zenthara screamed, her composure finally breaking. The Council fleet unleashed everything they had. Particle beams that could melt mountains lanced out across space. Plasma cannons that burned at the temperature of stellar cores discharged their fury. Missile swarms carrying enough explosive power to crack open moons raced toward the human ships. For a moment, it looked like the attack might succeed. The space between the two fleets filled with energy and fire. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers as weapons found their targets. But when the light faded, the human ships were still there. Not just undamaged, they looked like nothing had happened to them at all. How? The tactical officer gasped. Direct hits with our most powerful weapons. They should have been vaporized. The answer became clear when the humans fired back. Their weapons were not energy beams or explosive missiles. Instead, they attacked reality itself. The first human ship to fire sent out what looked like a ripple in space. Where the ripple touched a Council cruiser, the ship simply compressed. The massive vessel, over a kilometer long, was squeezed down to the size of a marble in the span of seconds. The crew had no time to scream before they were crushed into a point smaller than an atom. Another human weapon created a zone where time moved differently. A Council destroyer found itself aging centuries in seconds. Its hull corroded, its systems failed, and its crew died of old age before they could understand what was happening to them. A third human ship fired something that made part of a Council dreadnought simply stop existing. Not destroyed, not vaporized. One moment the ship was there, the next moment there was just empty space where part of it used to be. Shields are useless. Someone screamed over the communication system. These weapons ignore our defenses completely. That was when Zenthara finally understood what they were facing. The humans had not built better versions of existing weapons. They had created attacks that operated on principles so advanced that Council technology could not even detect them, much less defend against them. All ships, retreat, she ordered, her voice breaking with panic. Fall back immediately. But retreat was not as simple as it should have been. The human ships had surrounded them with gravity fields that made normal movement impossible. Some Council vessels found themselves trapped in zones where space itself had become thick like liquid. Others discovered that their engines would not work because the humans had changed the local laws of physics to make conventional propulsion impossible. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted only 3 hours. When it was over, less than 30 Council ships remained intact out of the original 300. The rest had been destroyed by weapons that attacked the fundamental structure of reality, or disabled by technology that made their systems simply stop working. High Admiral Zenthara found herself aboard a human ship, her hands restrained by some kind of localized gravity field that made movement impossible. Around her, the surviving crew members of the Council fleet waited in similar captivity. Outside the windows, she could see the wreckage of the most powerful fleet in galactic history, floating in space like broken toys. Admiral Chen entered the holding area, followed by Dr. Elena Vasquez. Both humans looked tired, as if the battle had cost them something even though they had won so easily. How? Zenthara asked, her voice hollow with defeat. How did you advance so far so quickly? How did you develop technology that our greatest scientists say is impossible? Elena stepped forward, her expression mixing pride with sadness. You want to know our secret? It is very simple. You told us we were not good enough to exist freely. You gave us time to prove you wrong. And humans, when we are threatened with extinction, can accomplish things that seem impossible. But the technology, Zenthara protested, gravitational manipulation, space-time distortion, these things require understanding of physics that takes thousands of years to develop. Only if you follow conventional research methods, Eleanor replied. We did not have thousands of years. We had 18 months. So we took shortcuts that your species would never consider. We experimented with dangerous ideas. We built things that might have destroyed us just to see if they would work. When your survival depends on it, you discover that the line between impossible and possible is much thinner than anyone believes. Through the window, Zenthara could see human ships moving through space with casual ease, their hulls gleaming with technology that redefined what was possible. In the distance, massive construction yards were already building more vessels, each one larger and more advanced than the last. The age of Council dominance was over. In its place, a new power had emerged, one that refused to accept limitations and would not bow to anyone's authority. The galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Chen walked through the corridors of the UES Defiance, his footsteps echoing in the vast spaces of humanity's most advanced warship. Through the transparent walls, he could see the remains of the Council fleet drifting in space like broken metal sculptures. 30 ships out of 300 had survived the battle, and even those were heavily damaged. The victory should have felt satisfying, but instead, Chen felt only a deep weariness. Humanity had proven they could defend themselves, but at what cost? They had revealed capabilities that would terrify every species in the galaxy. There would be no going back to the quiet isolation they had enjoyed before the Council's ultimatum. He reached the holding area where the Council survivors were being kept. High Admiral Zenthara sat in the center of the room, her 4 arms bound by gravity fields that made movement impossible but caused no pain. Around her, officers from dozens of different species waited in similar restraints. Their faces showed expressions of shock, fear, and disbelief. Dr. Elena Vasquez was already there, studying the prisoners with the same scientific curiosity she had once applied to stellar phenomena. She looked up as Chen approached, her expression mixing triumph with concern. How are they handling it? Chen asked quietly. About as well as you would expect, Elena replied. Most of them are still trying to process what happened. A few are demanding to speak with their governments. Some are asking how we developed our technology so quickly. Chen nodded and walked to the center of the room. The alien prisoners turned to look at him, their various eyes and sensory organs focusing on the human who had defeated the most powerful fleet in galactic history. "I am Admiral Chen of the United Earth Systems," he began, his voice carrying through the universal translators that made communication possible. "I want to make several things clear. First, you are not prisoners of war. You are survivors who will be returned to your people unharmed. Second, this battle was not our choice. You came to our system with weapons powered and clear hostile intent. Third, what happened here today changes everything." High Admiral Zenthara struggled against her restraints, her purple skin darkening with anger. "You have destroyed a council fleet. The galaxy will unite against you. Every species will consider you a threat to galactic peace." "Every species already considered us a threat," Chen replied calmly. "The council made that decision 18 months ago when they declared us unfit for galactic society. The only difference is that now we have proven we can defend ourselves against anyone who agrees with that assessment." War leader Thulgrim, his armor dented and scarred from the battle, spoke up from his position near the wall. "What do you want from us? Surrender? Tribute? Do you plan to conquer the galaxy now that you have superior technology?" Chen smiled sadly. "We want exactly what we wanted 18 months ago, to be left alone. We have no desire to conquer anyone or rule anyone. We just want the freedom to exist on our own terms." Dr. Scythara, the fleet's xenobiologist, had been silent since her capture. Now she spoke up, her voice filled with scientific curiosity despite her situation. "How did you do it? How did you advance so far so quickly? Our calculations show that developing gravitational manipulation technology should take thousands of years of research." Elena stepped forward, her expression becoming more animated as she shifted into teaching mode. "You want to understand our secret? It comes down to a fundamental difference in how humans and council species approach problems. When you encounter something that seems impossible, you accept it as impossible and look for alternatives. When humans encounter something that seems impossible, we assume there must be a way to make it possible." "But the energy requirements alone," Dr. Sithara protested, "to manipulate gravity on the scale we observed would require the power output of a star. Only if you try to brute force the problem," Elena replied. "We discovered that reality is much more flexible than your physics models suggest. Instead of trying to overpower the fundamental forces, we learned to convince them to work differently. Instead of generating massive amounts of energy, we found ways to redirect energy that already exists." Chen watched as understanding slowly dawned on the faces of the alien scientists. They were beginning to realize that humanity had not just developed new technology, they had developed an entirely different way of thinking about what was possible. "The wreckage of your survey ship helped," Elena continued. 20 years ago, one of your exploration vessels crashed on Earth. We studied every piece of it for decades, trying to understand how your technology worked. What we discovered was that your approach to physics was just one possible approach, not the only approach." Zenthara's expression shifted from anger to something approaching fear. "You reverse-engineered council technology and used it against us?" "We did much more than that," Elena said. "We used your technology as a starting point to develop things that your scientists never imagined. You see, humans have one advantage that most species seem to lack. We refuse to accept that anything is truly impossible. When told something cannot be done, we take it as a challenge." Through the transparent walls of the holding area, they could see human ships moving through space with impossible grace. The vessels flowed around each other like schools of fish, creating and dismissing gravity fields that allowed them to dance through space in ways that defied conventional understanding. "What happens now?" asked a delegate from the Silicon Collective, speaking through the multiple bodies that made up their group consciousness. Admiral Chen considered the question carefully. "Now we establish new rules. The Council claimed authority over us based on superior technology and longer experience. But authority that depends on superior force only lasts until someone develops superior force. Today, we proved that technological superiority can shift very quickly when a species is motivated enough." "Are you declaring war on the Council?" Dr. Sithara asked. "No," Chen replied firmly. We are declaring independence from the Council. There is a difference. We have no interest in conquering anyone or ruling anyone, but we will not accept anyone ruling us either. Elena pulled up a holographic display showing the solar system as it existed now. Mars glowed with the light of massive shipyards. The asteroid belt sparkled with automated mining operations and hidden weapons platforms. Even Venus, despite its hostile environment, showed signs of extensive industrial development. In 18 months, humanity transformed our entire solar system into the most advanced industrial complex in the galaxy, she explained. We did this while maintaining our democratic governments, our individual freedoms, and our diverse cultures. We proved that advancement does not require giving up what makes us human. The implications were staggering, and everyone in the room understood them. If humans could advance so far so quickly while maintaining their independence, what did that say about the Council's claims that primitive species needed guidance and control? You will be returned to your governments with a message, Chen announced. Humanity exists on our own terms. Any species that approaches us peacefully will find us willing to trade, to share knowledge, and to cooperate on projects of mutual benefit. Any species that approaches us with threats or demands for submission will discover that we have built defenses that can protect us from anyone. As if to emphasize his point, the ship's communication system activated. A message began broadcasting across all galactic communication frequencies, not just to the Council, but to every species capable of receiving interstellar transmissions. This is humanity, the message began. We exist as a free and independent species. We claim no authority over anyone, and we accept no authority from anyone. The age of the Council's absolute power is over. Species that seek peace will find us willing partners. Species that seek to dominate others will find us willing to help those who resist domination. A new era begins today. The message was simple, but its implications would reshape galactic politics forever. For thousands of years, the Council had maintained order by ensuring that no single species could challenge their authority. Now humanity had proven that rapid advancement was possible, that independence was achievable, and that the Council's technological superiority was not permanent. Across the galaxy, on worlds that had submitted to Council authority for millennia, beings looked up at the stars and wondered what this meant for them. If humans could defy the Council and win, what was stopping other species from seeking their own independence? High Admiral Zenthara sat in her restraints and realized that she had witnessed the end of an era. The galaxy that had existed for 10,000 years under Council rule was about to become something entirely different, something more chaotic, more dangerous, but also more free. "What have you done?" she whispered. Admiral Chen looked out at the stars and smiled. "We have given the galaxy back its freedom to choose."